thanks to the organizers for letting me show you the work that we have been doing in the last years, trying to find the variables in the inner galactic globular clusters in the footprint of the VVV. And especially, we are interested in pulsators, in RR lyras, because they are kind of common in many globular clusters, and they can provide us with information to better characterize these poorly known globular clusters. So let me remind you that, well, in the newest compilation of globular clusters, there are like 166 known and well-established globular clusters in our galaxy. There are tens of more candidates that Dante Miniti or Elisa Garro and others have been finding. But for this talk, we are going to concentrate on these known globular clusters. And from these 166, there are 38 of them that fall in the VVV footprint, the ones that you can see there in cyan. And there are 22 more globular clusters in the VVV-X footprint that you can see here in red. So all of these clusters are located in this part of the galaxy, in the inner galaxy. And if you try to look at them, studying them is complicated by two main reasons. First of all is of course, the high extinction that you are going to have to face when you try to take images of them. And the other is the high densities of field stars that are present in that region. So you can see this very clearly when we try to plot the color magnitude diagrams of these clusters out to their tidal radius there. You can see that, well, you cannot see very well the globular cluster branches because, for example, the RGB branch here from HP1 is mixed with the RGB, the red giant branch of the bulge stars from the field. There is also influence from the main stars of the foreground disk from the main sequence here that are going to mix down there also with the branches from the globular clusters. Differential extinction is also important there. So again, complicated to use these CMDs to understand these clusters. Even if we move a little closer to the center of the cluster, in here you can see in cyan stars out to 1 arc minute from the center of the cluster. Still there is contamination from the bulge, there is contamination from the disk, nothing, so it's still difficult to analyze those clusters. Even if you try to decontaminate that CMDs using proper motions, still, well, you know, you get very few stars there. It's complicated. Well, you can see better the RGB there, but you are not going to go very deep. In here, the RGB from the cluster is again contaminated by differential extinction. So analyzing these CMDs is very complex. So is there any other way to get information from these clusters instead of using the color magnitude diagrams? Well, here is where the second V in VVV comes very handy, the V of variability. So if we are able to find variables in these clusters, we can use them to better understand or to characterize the cluster. Okay, so we have been working in the last years trying to find these variables. And the way that we have been doing it is using VIRAC2. VIRAC2 is, as Maren and Roberto has mentioned before, this is a photometric catalog based on PSF photometry and using the whole VVV footprint. And they provide not only the light curves of all the sources in the VVV, but also they are providing different statistics for the photometry of every source. And very importantly, they are providing very good proper motions. Okay, so we developed a method just using this wonderful catalog just to try to look and find pulsators and other variables in these clusters. How did we do that? First, we took all the stars out to the tidal radius of a given cluster, and we just first we make this plot. In this plot, we are showing the median KS magnitude of the different epochs for a given star versus their median absolute deviation. And since variable stars are supposed to have a higher, the variability is going to show up because this median absolute deviation is going to be much bigger. So what we did is we made a fit there, and everything that is 1 sigma over the fit, the sources that are there in green, we took them as probable candidates. Then what we did, we submit all of these sources to a Lohm-Skargol algorithm just to find the best periods. We phase the light curve. We made a Fourier fit, and then we try to find this rho parameter, which we define as the ratio of the standard deviation of the distribution of the different Ks to the standard deviation from its Fourier fit. Basically, just keep in mind that if this rho is high, it's a high number, then we are going to have like these wonderful light curves that you are seeing there. If the rho is small, well, then what is going to mean is that the star is not really varying so much, or that we are not going to be able to see so clearly that it's a variable. So we made a cut using this rho parameter, and we were able to find good quality light curves like the ones that you are seeing there. So we were able to find, in addition of pulsators like RR pulsating in the fundamental mode or in the first overtone, we also found cepheids. We found even some eclipsing binaries. But in order to assign the different types of variability, we made this by a visual inspection of all these light curves. And also we made a cross correlation with other variable databases like OGLE or the Clement catalog for variable stars. And that way we just have our variables for all of these clusters that we were studying. So the next step is to know if these variables really belong to the cluster or not. I mean, they are in the right position, but maybe they are foreground or background variables and they don't belong to the cluster. So how did we check for cluster membership? So what we did is we used different methods going from visual inspection to machine learning algorithms just to check if they belong to the cluster according to the position in the sky, close to the center, farther away from the center, position in the color magnitude diagram. If they are LiDAR, they should fall in the horizontal branch, for example, and then very importantly, the proper motions. The proper motions are going to help a lot into separating members from non-members. In here, let me make a little digression, and because a very interesting byproduct of our method is that we are able to find the globular cluster proper motions. So, and we are able to compare the proper motions that we are obtaining with the Gaia results. And as you can see, well, the agreement is pretty good, except for some of the most distinct globular clusters, like for example, 2-CCO2. You can see that the difference is very big between Gaia and us. Well, the thing is that we are, why is this difference? Well, it's because we believe that we are able to see more clearly where the cluster is than Gaia because of the extinction. The extinction of this cluster is very high, so Gaia probably is not assuming that, or is not finding the right stars for this globular cluster. So with this, now we can go to this period luminosity metallicity relations that we have recalibrated to be able to use with the Vista filter system, and we were able to use them on the RR LiDARs to find their distance and the extinction. And as you can see, we agree in the clusters that are not so extinct. The agreement between us and the literature is pretty good. It's not so good when we go to the more extincted ones, but this is what is supposed to be. I mean, our data is much better for these clusters, and we can establish better the positions for and the distance and the extinction for these clusters. So one other thing, or an important nice byproduct of clusters in which which possess a lot of differential extinction, is that we can get at the same time of obtaining the distance for the cluster, we can obtain the total to selected extinction ratio of these clusters. So the total to selected extinction ratio is the slope of this fit that you can see here, and the distance is the 0 point of the fit. So just before finishing, just letting you know that some of these clusters, in addition to having RR LiDARs, they also have Cepheids. So we have another way to calculate distances and extinction with a completely different period luminosity relation. So this is an independent method, and as you can see, the agreement between both are pretty good. So this is what we are finding. We are quite happy with this. So I think that I am on time. So just let me, to end up, just let me remind you that there are still plenty of globular clusters. We have studied just a few of them. We are aiming or we are finishing the study of the rest of the clusters that have RR LiDARs in the VVV footprint, and we are going to start soon with the ones in the VVVX. So if you are interested in these studies, please keep tuned, and we will have important updates in the near future. And with this, I thank you for your attention and take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.